Welcome to our deep dive, everyone. So we're going to go through each race in order from V86-1 to V86-8. So let's just jump right into V86-1, which is at Jägersro.
Okay, sounds good.
And it is a 3,140 meter vault start. Quite a long race. The horse that the expert seems to be most interested in is Unis Prince, who's starting from track 8. And it sounds like this is a very classy horse. He's making a comeback in this race, but the expert doesn't think he's going to be at peak fitness. However, he thinks that the starting position is favorable enough that he might be able to kind of round them all up from the outside.
Yeah, I mean, when you get a horse that's elite, sometimes it can be enough, even with less than, 100% form. It's interesting, though, because it's his debut over this distance.
Yeah.
But he does have very strong merits over, 2,640 meters, so.
Right.
So it's not like it's completely uncharted territory.
Right. He's been over these kind of long distances. In his previous debuts, after layoffs, he's still been able to win, even when maybe not at peak form.
Yeah.
And he does think Tears in Heaven is a horse that can challenge. He's starting from track 6.
Okay.
The expert describes him as a fightus, and he says he's in good form. He thinks the competition is a little bit easier here, with the exception of Unis Prince. But he did mention that in his last race, the winner of that race was very strong. So it kind of, makes his performance look even better.
Yeah, in context.
In context, right. And then there's Sultan of Sand, track 3. The expert says he's been performing well in a new stable. He's now going to be racing Barfoda around, which means without shoes, all 4 feet.
Right.
And the expert says that all of his previous wins have come when he's been racing Barfoda.
Wow, okay.
He thinks that the distance is suitable and the position is suitable.
Yeah.
And he believes he's going to try to lead for a long time. And then the expert does mention one potential long shot, the Reyes de Poggio.
Yeah.
They're starting from track 7. He says that he was saved energy last time. He thinks he's capable. But the expert does say that he could be a bit inconsistent. And he thinks that, if he's gonna hit the board here, he needs to get a pretty stealthy trip.
He needs some luck.
Needs some luck, yeah. Okay. So V86-2 at Solvalla. This one's a little bit shorter. It's a 1,640 meter auto start. And this looks like a much more competitive race, according to the expert.
Right.
There are several horses that the expert gives sort of similar chances to.
Why?
I think that the one that he likes the most is Legacy of Sound, who's starting from track 6. And even though he did have a gallop in his last race, the expert says that he seemed to have a lot of energy left.
Okay.
He says he's in good order, he has a strong finish, and he counts.
So he's in the mix.
He's in the mix, yeah.
Okay.
But then you have Ganarina, who's starting from track 11, which is a little bit of a difficult starting position.
Yeah.
She's a fine mare.
Okay.
She's in great form lately. Thinks that even from that position, she's well positioned and given in the fight.
Okay.
She's now going to be racing Barfoda in front for the first time.
Okay.
So another shoe change. Yeah. And then there's Jetame Legacy, track 2. Now this one's interesting because he is described as stank red, and the expert says that he performs best when he's in the lead. He's actually undefeated in 3 attempts when leading.
Wow.
So he thinks that this horse, he needs to get to the front.
Okay.
But it's not impossible from track 2.
Yeah.
He's also going to be Barfoda in front for the first time. And there are even rumors that he might be racing in a new sulky, which is it's a little bit lighter equipment there, could make a difference.
Okay.
And then we have XO Kempis, track 4. Now this one, the expert just gives an outright tip on.
Okay.
He doesn't mention him as highly as some of these others, but he clearly likes him in this race.
All right.
Okay. V86-3. Back at Jägersro for another 1,640 meter auto start. This one looks like it's going to be another one where there's some speed in the race.
Okay.
The horse that the expert likes the most is Dark Photon Face, who's starting from track 2. He describes this horse as very talented, but lightly raced. So he's still relatively inexperienced. He thinks he's a fast starter, and that he's not afraid to race aggressively, even against tougher competition, which he says he's done previously.
So he's ready for the challenge, potentially.
Yeah, he's up for the fight. The challengers, according to the expert, Inferno from track 9, he says he seems to have found his form. He's speedy. He doesn't mind a trip behind others, which is good because he is starting from out a little bit.
Yeah.
He thinks he's an early contender. He says even though his last race was tough, he still performed well.
Right.
And then you have Peak of Glory, track 1.
Okay.
The expert describes her as inconsistent, but on her top days, she's good.
So a little bit of a boomer bust type.
Yeah, a little bit boomer bust. She's a fast starter, and she counts, which means she's in the mix.
Yeah.
She's now going with a bike, so that might be a factor. And then Ninth Road from track 5, the expert says he showed good late speed recently. He can start fast, but he's not dependent on the lead. So he's another one of those kind of fight-us horses that can kind of adapt to the race.
Okay.
But the long shot that I think is interesting is Black Emperor track 6.
Okay.
The expert says, he was okay last time. He maintained speed. He prefers even high pace. But what's interesting is that he's now going to be racing with blinkers on and Barfoda in front.
Uh-huh.
So a big equipment change.
Yeah.
And the expert describes this as very interesting and a potential rise heir.
Rise heir, so like a thriller.
Yeah. Like this horse could be a big surprise.
Sure.
Moving on to V86-4, we're going back to Solvalla.
Okay.
This one is a 26,640 meter auto start.
Mm-hmm.
So it's another one of those longer races. And in this one, it seems like the expert is really focused on 2 horses.
Okay.
ID Hipster 1 from track 2 and Hercules Godiva from track 3.
Okay.
ID Hipster 1, he says, was very impressive in his recent win. Thinks he's improving quickly. He's got good early speed. And he thinks he's likely to get to the lead. So he gives him a good chance, and he makes him his pick in this race.
Okay.
Hercules Godiva, he says he's coming off of 5 straight wins.
Wow. Okay.
He won his seasonal debut. He says you must take him seriously.
Yeah, you can't ignore that.
You can't ignore 5 straight wins. But he does note that he is going to be facing tougher competition now.
Right.
But what's interesting is that he mentions a number of other horses in this race that could be factors.
Okay.
So Hidalgo Simone, track 10.
Okay.
He calls him a fun joker.
Yeah.
He's got a very significant driver upgrade, Mass Ejos.
Okay.
Top driver. He's been closing very fast in his recent starts. The expert says he's in top form. And then you have Selective Calling, track 9. He says he's a consistent performer, has shown good late speed, and is in top form. So he counts.
Okay.
Just Fontaine, track 5. The expert says he performed clearly well after a long break.
Okay.
He describes him as more strong than fast.
Yeah.
So he's a resilient horse. He's a contender.
Okay.
Slave to Love Cal, track 6. He says he's been performing well this year, approaching top form, and he is by a successful sire, Love You. And he's now going barfota around for the first time.
Ooh.
And then finally, Shufskund, track 1, great speed, won impressively before. The risk is that he's going to get stuck on the inside.
Right.
But if he gets clear running, the expert says he's as good as any. He's going barfota. And he's also going to be in an American sulky.
Okay.
So let's move on to V86-5 back at Jägersro.
Yeah.
This is a 2,140 meter vault start. And this one's interesting because there are actually 2 starting groups.
Okay.
But the expert seems to be very confident in his top pick here, which is Credelius Loyui, starting from track 3 in the intervault. He says he's mostly done everything right, 2 straight wins. The first win was from behind, and then last time he won from the lead. So he seems to be able to handle different race scenarios.
Right.
And he thinks he should be able to get a good position.
Okay.
There are some challengers, obviously. Overdrive Steel, track 2 in the interval, finished well recently, and he is now expected to race Barfota around, which the expert seems to think is a big deal.
Yeah.
So he makes him a major challenger. DiMaggio Face, track 1 in the interval. He says he's been slightly inconsistent, but improved in 2 starts after a break. He thinks the inside start should mean a clean getaway, and he thinks that he's likely to try to lead the whole way.
Okay.
And then you have Vanquish, track 8 in the outer vault, so starting 20 meters behind.
Okay.
He actually finished second to Cridley's Lou last time, even though he had the 20-meter head start.
Right.
He's now Barfota around again, and it's only the second time he's done that in his career.
Okay.
He hasn't won in a while, but the expert thinks that this could be the time, and he expects him to get a good position behind Overdrive Steel.
Okay.
And the expert does mention one potential long shot, Alessio, track 6 in the outer vault, so starting 20 meters behind. He says he usually performs well at Jägersro. Most of his wins have come there, and he showed good form last time with a trip behind cover, a clear run late. So it'll be interesting to see if he can make up that 20-meter deficit.
Yeah.
Moving on to V86-6 at Solvalla, 2,040 meters, auto start. Now, this one's interesting because it's an amateur race,
Okay.
which means that the drivers are not professional drivers.
Gotcha.
So sometimes these races can be a little bit more unpredictable because you don't know what kind of decisions the driver's going to make.
Right.
So Nigel Di Quattro, track 4. He says that he faced top horses last year.
Right.
He thinks he has potential. He describes him as strong, and he gives him the tip.
Right.
But, and this is a big but, he says only if he races without shoes.
Okay.
So we need to check the equipment and make sure that this horse is racing Barfota.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's a no-go.
Otherwise, he doesn't think he's going to win.
Gotcha.
Ulgi Lane, track 9. He describes him as a Seizure Maskin, which basically means like a winning machine.
Okay.
He's returning after a break. He says that all of his wins have come at home, but he has shown that he can perform well in tougher races. He's got good late speed, and he's actually a statistical winner. So according to the numbers, he's the most likely winner.
Okay.
Perfect's on track 2. The expert says he's shown good ability and form, and he's a very fast starter, so he could be an early win candidate.
Okay.
Lifelong Journey, track 10. He says that he delivered impressive performances last year, was a good second last time out, and he's now going to be racing Barfota behind.
Yeah, okay.
So not all around, just on the back feet.
Gotcha.
And he has a driver who's got a perfect record this year.
Wow.
Okay. Nowhere Fast, track 1. He says he's been unimpressive recently.
Yeah.
But he's a fast starter.
Okay.
So if the favorites falter, maybe he can steal it.
Yeah.
And then finally, Kent's Mare, track 12. The expert says he's better than his form suggests.
Okay.
He kept pace well in a tough V75 race. He thinks that he could be interesting if there's a fast early pace.
Okay.
Okay. V86.7, back at Jägersro. 2,140 meters, auto start. This one, the expert seems to be very, very keen on his top pick, which is Café Champagne, track 7. He says she's been very impressive this year. He thinks she's facing easier competition here. He says she can do work on her own, so she can set the pace.
Okay.
But she also has speed, so she can come from behind.
Right.
He gives her the label given contender.
Okay.
So he's very confident in her. And he says that he's had a strong opinion on her previously and has even picked her in V75 races before.
All right.
So he's been right about her before.
Yeah. He's got a good track record with this horse.
Exactly. Yeah. But the main challenger, according to the expert, is Victoria LL, track 3. He says that she looked very good in her debut for a new trainer. She's a very fast starter, and she can control the race. He says she got stuck with energy left last time, so he thinks that she could have won that race if she had gotten a better trip.
Okay.
So he thinks she's a potential winner, especially if she reaches the lead.
Right.
And then you have Garden Leave, track 11, who's a very fast finisher.
Yeah. Okay.
So she's going to be coming from behind. The expert says she's the main challenger to the top pick, but she did gallop early last time. And the draw is tricky from out there in track 11.
Yeah.
But she will finish fast.
Okay.
And then you have Perfect, track 10.
Right.
Great speed, has a race under her belt after a long break, and she gets another storm warning.
Another storm warning.
So watch out for Perfect.
Okay.
And then the potential long shot here is 8 Hour, track 1.
Okay.
Who hasn't won in a while, but he's now racing Barfota around. And he is fast from the start. And then finally, V86.8, the final race of the night at Solvalla. 2,140 meters, auto start.
Okay.
And it looks like we have a very strong favorite in this race, Tridiac, track 6.
Okay.
The expert describes him as promising. He is undefeated in faultless races, which means that he has 8 wins in 10 starts, but 2 of those starts, he made a break.
Okay.
He won easily last time out, and he thinks that he's likely to be driven aggressively for the lead.
All right.
So this is a horse that wants to be on the front.
Yeah.
The main challenger, he says, is Paul Morphin, track 4.
Okay.
He says this is the hottest challenger. He performs best without shoes, which he is going to be in this race.
Okay.
He was actually held back last time and seemed to have a lot of energy left. The expert is hoping for an aggressive drive, and that he's not going to just hand over the lead to the favorite.
Okay.
So he thinks that this horse could potentially upset.
Right.
Global Enjoy, track 1. He's been consistent and good most times. He hasn't won recently, but he is now going Barfota, which the expert finds interesting.
Okay.
Good draw, and he thinks that he's a potential long shot warning.
Okay.
And then finally, Arjo on track 2.
All right.
He's got V75 merit, so he's performed well in tougher races. He thinks he's an early contender. Good draw. The competition is suitable apart from the favorite, but he needs to show improvement on his recent form.
Okay.
So I think that's it for our deep dive into the V86 card. So I hope you enjoyed this deep dive, and good luck with your bets.
Good luck.